morning and welcome to the Women Racing to Win right here on the Grid Network. Joe San Diego here along with Daniel Zeri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. Invite everyone to comment in the chat room. We'd love to answer questions right here on the air. We got a lot of racing to talk about. We'll start off with DTM and down all the action that was right there with the two drivers racing in DTM.
Absolutely. Hi, Joe, and hi, everyone. Thank you for always following our weekly recap of the Women in Motorsport. As you said, Joe, in Zolder, there was the third round of the DTM Championship, the new era of DTM since it's moved to the GT3 regulations. It's been quite interesting and exciting to see the new format. In Zolder, Belgium, it was DTM coming back home because, of course, the very first race in the history of the championship was there in 1984. So it was kind of a nice coming back home for DTM in its new format. And as you said, there are two female drivers this year in DTM. One is Esme Hockey, former W Series racer. Last year, she won the title in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB in the Pro-Am class. So definitely a driver that knows a thing or two about GT racing and also with prior GT3 experience, even though she has made her debut in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 car, which is a new car for her, and she missed all pre-season testing because of her very last-minute deal with T3 Motorsport. But still, she's doing great. She's really made some good progress in Monza. She was great in qualifying, and then in Lausitzring, she had a bit more of a challenging weekend because of a huge crash into the first race and the banking in turn one in Lausitzring, and so that kind of hampered her weekend in Lausitzring. But she was back in Zolder, and she did pretty great. I would say that again, she showed great progress in qualifying. Which is so far really one of her strongest points, especially in race 2. She was P10 for the very first time. She managed to get into the top 10 in DTM. Really great stuff from Esme, who is also the only British driver in the championship. Then in the races, she managed to claim her best result in the series so far with a P13 in race 1, and she did just like the same thing in race 2. She again matched her best result with another P13. Solid race, good race pace. She was always there in the mix in battles. Of course, Zolder, we know that it's kind of a difficult track where to pass. A lot of it's a very old style circuit, not much room for error. You can go off track and you're in the wall pretty easily. There's grass, there is no the huge tarmac runoff areas that we are lately been used to see in the newer generation tracks. Esme had quite some experience, some prior experience of the Zolder racetrack because she was in 2019 with W Series racing there, of course with the single seaters and not in GT cars, but at least she had an idea where the track was going. And as I said, did very well in Zolder. Best results so far. Very encouraging for the rest of the season. While the other, and here we see one of her pictures in the Rocket sponsored Lamborghini T3 Motorsport. She was often very close with other drivers. There was always in the pack. She was battling with drivers of the likes of Daniel Juncadella and drivers, I mean, with quite a lot of experience, both in DTM and in other elite Formula and motorsport championships. The other drivers racing in DTM this year and making her debut in DTM is of course Sophia Florsch. She has been racing last year in both the European Le Mans Series and in the FIA Formula 3 Championship, racing alongside Formula 1. This year, she's made a step up to WEC, to the World Endurance Championship, and next weekend she will be racing at the 24 Hour of Le Mans, the second time that she will be racing at the legendary endurance race. And she made a switch from Formula cars to DTM for the first time. Unlike Esme, it's the very first year that Sofia has been racing in closed cockpits, of course, especially in GT3 machinery. She did some testing prior to the start of the championship, but of course, with a hugely competitive field like it is the 2021 DTM, with a lot of experienced drivers both in DTM and in GT3, especially like Kelvin van der Linde and Mike Rockenfeller, two Audi Abt teammates, basically. Sofia has been struggling a little bit more to adapt to her car. She was P15 at the season debut in season opener in Monza, and then had a very difficult weekend in Lausitzring. Not for her fault, of course. She had problems with a fuel pump, and she had to miss the first race. Had to miss the second qualifying. She started from the back in race 2. Even though the team initially had said that she had to miss also the second race, then they managed to send her on track on the very last minute. But of course, it was a rough weekend for Sofia in Lausitzring, and especially in these conditions when every lap counts, every kilometers, every mileage that she can do in the car, she's learning more. So that's very important for her in her debut season in DTM. But I would say that one of the most important things that we also have to consider when we take into account Sophia Flörsch's first season in DTM is also a particular system that she has on her car. As you've said, as you've seen, her car is sponsored by Schaeffler, which is a technology giant and very close with Audi. Schaeffler is developing a special system, a special steering system that does not employ a mechanical link between the steering wheel and the front wheels. It is all an electronic system, a steer-by-wire system, which only Sophia Flörsch and Timo Glock and also Paffett will be using on the Mercedes. So there is one BMW, which is Timo Glock's, one Audi, which is Sophia Flörsch, and then the Mercedes of Gary Paffett. They will be developing this system, but of course, Sophia is getting used to the car, is getting used to GT3, and also is now developing the steer-by-wire system. So it's not going to be easy for her, especially because as Schaeffler is, of course, saying, this is kind of a revolutionary system that will be probably a lot important in the coming years, especially for applications like the autonomy driver applications in the everyday world on streets. So, but of course, it's still in the very early stages in motor racing. It's the very first time that it has been employed on track. And we've seen also Timo Glock, who is, of course, a former Formula 1 driver, a lot of experience for him in many championships. He is really struggling and he's really at the back together with Sophia, battling with Sophia. So I think we also have to take into account this feature when we talk about Sophia Flörsch's first season in DTM. Of course, Zolder being also quite kind of a tight track, very twisty, with a lot of direction changes and chicanes. It's really, we can, of course, we don't know it precisely, and Sophia, of course, she says that this is a revolutionary system, that it's in the early stages, that it's on the developing stage. So of course, it's tough to understand its potential right now in racing. But we also have to take account into this thing, because of course with a lot of chicanes and director changes, we can probably think that a steer-by-wire system has a little bit of a delay right now. So that probably was what was one of the thing of this past weekend. Sofia also had a braking issue into the second race, and she had to retire because she's starting to feel the brake pedal going a little bit long. So of course the team retired the car based on safety grounds. And she also wasn't feeling that well nothing major, nothing important, but she also had a little bit of a health issue. But she will be fully in shape for next weekend, 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Great to say next weekend, 24 Hours Le Mans. No, very excited to see her potential with her teammates. It's going to be a great race, and definitely we're going to be previewing that race next weekend as well, right here on the Grid Network. Be sure to subscribe to us right here on YouTube. When it comes to the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, they've had a long break, especially with the Summer Olympics going on. NASCAR decided we're going to take the next few weeks off. So it was definitely a welcome sight for everyone to be back at the track, and it was Watkins Glen International. Of course, this track, known for hosting past Formula One United States Grand Prix, it has hosted Indy cars, but has predominantly become NASCAR's Northern East road course tradition. Last year, that tradition didn't occur with the pandemic, so all the teams had to race at Daytona. So for the first time since 2019, all the teams were back at Watkins Glen International, New York. Jennifer Jo Cobbs, of course, she's been racing the Truck Series for quite some time. The Truck Series, they've been away from this track a little bit. They don't have the annual consistency of coming here every year like the Cup Series. Jennifer Jo Cobb, she started this race in 28th place. Of course, this year she's further back in the points with no qualifying this year for most races, very little or no practice. It just makes it harder and harder. As one driver, Eric Almirola, once said, if you're starting towards the back, you're going to most likely finish towards the back because you have all the disadvantages of being towards the back. Jennifer Jo Cobb finished the race 36th place. Road course racing is not her strong suit, and especially here in NASCAR, the road courses used to be 1 or 2 times a year. Now NASCAR are going to more frequent road courses, so for the drivers that don't have the road course experience, they might be in a little bit of trouble. One driver that tried to make the best of the road course experience this year was Hailie Deegan. Of course, she's driving the number 1 Ford this year at Watkins Glen. She started 18th place. Not too bad considering she's had some good runs. Just the consistency seems to be a little bit missing there, but of course, this is her rookie season in the Camping World Truck Series. Watkins Glen International, she completed all 61 laps, staying on the lead lap. Big thing was she was just in the midfield just about all race long. With the road course racing, you still have the stage breaks. This is where you can see opportunities to try to utilize those cautions to move up to the field. This is what we saw on Sunday, where some drivers pitted early. And then when that stage break came, they gained a ton of positions. For Hailie Deegan, being the midfield, it's just really challenging because, of course, if you have trucks doing that strategy, if you stay out, you're going to be up front, but then you're going to lose positions. Or if you pit with everyone, you're just still stuck in the midfield. She came home 19th place, so just overall, it looks like she just lost one position, but she was all over in the midfield, just battling everybody throughout the entire race at Watkins Glen International. Now, Watkins Glen International was the last race of the year for the NASCAR Truck Series regular season. Unlike most motorsport series, NASCAR's top 3 divisions of the Trucks, Xfinity, and the Cup Series, they all have a playoff format. For the Truck Series, it is 10 trucks, 10 teams that make the playoff, the top 10 in the points, starting with the drivers with the most wins to the fewest wins, and then the top 10 in points. For Hailie Deegan, 17th place in the points, she was tied with Tanner Gray. While that might be just one position away from the Cup Series playoffs, that was 7 positions away because you got to be in the top 10 So this year she is not going to be in the playoffs. Jennifer Jo Cobb, of course, she's not going to be in the playoffs as well either. But for Hailie Deegan, a rookie season, the next few races is just a matter of gaining that experience for next year in the Truck Series. Now, some big news that occurred this past weekend. Hailie Deegan had announced she would be interested in doing Xfinity Series races next year, particularly on a part-time schedule. Of course, it's got the online debate going on. Is she moving up too quickly? Is she moving up too fast? Some of the key things got to remember with the Truck Series. The parity level there, you have a good handling truck and a good driver with experience, you're going to be more towards the front. You still see some teams like Kyle Busch Motorsports. Those teams are going to always be on the front. But look at some of the big winners that we had this year from the smaller team, including Watkins Glen. Hill got that win there. That's somebody that just got their first career win earlier this year on a dirt track. So it's so very close and competitive there. Hailie Deegan, of course, she is a rookie this year in the Truck Series, and most of the time she has no practice, no qualifying laps. Those first laps are her first laps out there on the track. When she goes to Xfinity Series, there's still that same element of parity between all the teams. However, this is where you see teams like Team Penske, Joe Gibbs Racing, Rich Childress Racing. There are towards the front. They know the tricks to get that edge on the competition. If Hailie Deegan could get herself a good ride, especially with the Ford Motorsport Development Program, potentially Team Penske or one of the teams that are going to get good support from Ford, she could be up there towards the front. And we've seen time and time again, some drivers, they seem to be a bit average in one series, whereas the Truck Series or Xfinity Series, they move up to another level, and that's where it just seems something is clicking. Best example of that, of course, has to be Jimmie Johnson. Only one Xfinity Series win. Most drivers know him for crashing hard in the Xfinity Series at Watkins Glen, a clip we see over and over every year. And of course, he goes to the Cup Series, makes history. Hailie Deegan, rookie year, potential for being in the Xfinity Series. I think that is an excellent move to advance her career. Definitely getting the experience of another season in the truck, plus part-time in the Xfinity Series. And of course, if things go really well, find a sponsorship deal lined up for 2023 and potentially a full-time Xfinity Series ride. So definitely a lot going on for Hailie Deegan. Of course, she's still very young, so still a lot of time. But we're seeing younger and younger drivers, including the Cup Series. So definitely, I think this is something to be watching. And of course, we're always going to be following all the women racers right here as they progress their career. And of course, Daniel, I know one driver that we're going to be talking about shortly in the Michelin Pilot Sports has to be Chyna Monk, who is also progressing in her racing career.
Absolutely. The Michelin Pilot Challenge, racing together with IMSA program this year has been really interesting for our point of view, because there are two women very, very competitive this year in the two classes. One is, as you mentioned, Chyna Monk in the GS class, which is the GT4 category, basically. And the other one is Taylor Hagler racing in the TCR category. Taylor Hagler won the prior race in the TCR class. So she came into the Road America weekend as the championship leader. And that is really, really important for Taylor, that is in her second season in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. And is also racing in another program this year in GT3. She has made her GT3 debut this year in the SRO in GT World Challenge America. So definitely a very competitive program for Taylor. And she was coming off of a victory and coming into Road America, which was one of the most iconic racetracks that in our North American motorsport, that every drivers always say that they love this track, very spectacular. And it was certainly the case for last weekend, very weekend with a lot of rain in every classes and in every championship that was racing there. And also Sheena Monk had pretty a great championship so far in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. She was in third position in the standings, but then the last race she had an off in the first lap and she retired. So unfortunately, she came into the weekend at Road America in 5th place in the championship. But she definitely has that pace and that potential to be right up there in the top 3. She's sharing the car with a former IndyCar driver Spencer Pigot. So a really competitive team in the McLaren GT4. Of course, it was a really it's 2-hour racing, 2-hour races in this year's Michelin Pilot Challenge, and it was very spectacular. And also the rain was coming and going, so very tricky also for the tire strategy. But both of the female drivers had very difficult qualifying and practice sessions, I would say, because Taylor Hagler basically had to miss all the practice session and part of qualifying because they had to change the engine. They had an engine change on the Hyundai TCR by Brian Herta Autosport, which is also the team champion in last year. But they missed qualifying, they missed practice, so it was difficult for Taylor. She started from the back of the TCR field, while Sheena also was struggling a little bit in qualifying, and she started from P17 in GS. Both Taylor and Sheena were racing in the first stint, so they took the start of the race for the first hour before handing over to their respective teammates. But the really, really impressive race was from Sheena Monk. It was raining in the first part of the race, and she had a remarkable stint. She made her way through the field. She overtook a lot of cars, and she handed over to Spencer Pigot in P9 in class and overall. So definitely a great stint for Sheena. And also Taylor made it into the top 10 in TCR before handing over to her teammate, who is Michael Lewis, a former Formula 3 driver who also raced here in Europe for a couple of seasons. And so it was quite a remarkable first part of the race for both Taylor and Sheena. And Spencer Pigot had a stunning second half of the race. Again, he made a lot of passes, and towards the end of the race, he was running in P3 when another car went off track, and so he made it into second place. He was really a lot faster than the leader at that point, and he was catching up with the leader with 10 minutes left on the clock. While unfortunately they had to make a splash and go with like 3 minutes left. So he said that their McLaren is a little bit harder on fuel consumption, and so they couldn't make to the end, and they had to unfortunately to pit with some minutes left. While really a podium was definitely in contention, but probably also a race victory. Unfortunately for them, they finished 6th. While also it was a kind of a more messy race for Taylor Hagler and her teammate, because they stayed out when the rain was quite heavy again, because they pitted for slicks when the rain was starting to to stop. And so they took a tire gamble and went on slicks. Unfortunately, the rain started again. They tried to stay out to see if maybe the rain was slowing down towards the end of the race. Unfortunately, it didn't really pay off, and they had to pit again. So also Taylor Hagler and Michael Lewis had an extra stop, which ultimately dropped them to 11th place. It was the first time that Taylor finished a race outside of the top 10 this year. Luckily, they managed to maintain the championship lead after Road America, which is great for the remainder of the season. 3 more rounds left in the Michelin Pilot Challenge Championship, and both Sheena Monk and Taylor Hagler are doing very well. So we will definitely continue to follow their progress.
Definitely be following their progress. And as you mentioned, of course, Road America, IMSA, the WeatherTech Series was there racing, and we had Catherine Legge there. She was part of the effort with her racing teammate Rob Prioli, piloting the number 88 Bishop Mill Grid Rivals Porsche. Race overall 2 hours 40 minutes, so it's going to be a pretty quick race compared to some of the other big IMSA events. Road America, very demanding track, and we saw that they started 11th place, essentially qualifying. They got 11th place, just outside the top 10 in their class. But this is where we saw progress as Rob. He piloted that vehicle in that first stint, getting up to 9th place. Essentially handed it over to Catherine when they were to 8th place. Catherine Legge, she was driving a phenomenal race, racing up in the top 10. Of course, she has experience racing here from the old IndyCar kart series, and now be back here in sports car, trying to give this team another good finish. And she was up to 7th place. But the big thing, there seemed to be a clutch issue, and next thing you know, she is trying to nurse that vehicle home. Last lap of the race, looks like she's going to come home 7th place, but towards the end of that lap, we see a pass, and it's Catherine Legge dropping down to 8th place. That is where her and the team finished the race, 8th place in class. Great effort, especially considering the mechanical issues they suffer as a team, but were able to finish the race. And for Catherine, now 10th in the points as they approach Laguna Seca WeatherTech race rate in California. That's going to be the next round for the IMSA WeatherTech series. It's going to be a very exciting end of the season as they start to wrap up and all the series starts to wrap up. But I know our show will be wrapping up, but damn, we got a lot of racing. So racing season is still going strong.
Absolutely. Well, we see quite a lot of championship right now on vacation. It's definitely not going to be a holiday yet for some of them this weekend. We will have the British Formula 4 and BTCC going up to Scotland to the Knockhill racetrack, where in British Formula 4, Abby Pulling will be racing. Abby had quite a unlucky last time at Alton Park. She I wouldn't say that she struggled because she was fast, but she was unlucky. She was caught in some contacts, and so she will definitely try to go back to the position where she belonged at Knockhill. Also in BTCC, racing on the same track will be Jade Edwards in the Premier British Touring Car Championship. The British, formerly known as British Formula 3 Championship, that is now GB3 Championship, because of course the FIA is clamping down on the usage of the naming Formula 3, which they really want that to be part of the Formula 1 wicket for the FIA Formula 3 Championship. So the British Formula 3, which is just a little bit of a shame because it has a long history with a lot of important drivers that made the start of their careers in British Formula 3. But it's now GB3. They're racing at Silverstone this weekend with Rima Gifali racing there. Rima had her best qualifying over season last week at Snetterton. And so definitely, and also at Silverstone, they raced before at Silverstone earlier this June, where Rima had her best result of the season with a P4. So definitely we'll be following Rima closely this weekend at Silverstone. And also we will have the Moto E Championship coming back to Austria for the second round at the Austrian racetrack for in a back-to-back for MotoGP. Moto E will be back with Maria Herrera racing there, and we will have also one of our team in Austria this weekend. Julia Truzevics will be there following Moto E. So definitely we'll be bringing you the latest news next weekend.
I encourage everyone to be sure to visit the website racersbehindthehelmet.com. There you get a calendar of all the races going on. As you mentioned, there's the Moto E, British F4, and a ton of racing throughout the week. So it's definitely a lot to be excited about when it comes to racing. And of course, you get that all at racersbehindthehelmet.com. So definitely very exciting race weekend up ahead. And of course, Moto E, a lot of us heard that big breaking news about Maverick Vinales MotoGP. We'll be following that on Grid Life pre-race. And of course, we'll be back next weekend to recap Maria's weekend in Moto E and everyone racing throughout the weekend. For Daniel Zeri at Racers, the girls behind the helmet, I'm Joe Santiago. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.